See who accepts it.
You got the text they sent, right?
Oh, yeah, and I embellished on it.
Okay. I was trying to get everything done last night because I knew I was going to be on the set all day today.
What movie are you making?
Twitch has accepted the stream.
We were on somebody else's movie.
YouTube has accepted the stream.
It was called The Midnight Bowl.
That was quite a different name. Would have never put that to that
We were
film.
playing 70s bowling fans.
Okay, I was going to say, so is that kind of bowl? Is it this kind of bowl?
No.
My dad
bowling.
was one of the best bowlers in the
Everybody
area.
was dressed like the 70s, from the hair down.
Richard, did
Facebook
YouTube
has
accept?
accepted the stream.
Okay.
When you see the timer says on the air, you're on the air, okay?
Okay. Welcome to the Oracle of Enlightenment Vortex. This is the Observer, Sal Monaco, along with my co-host, the great Terry, the...
Talking proud girl.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
I was trying to decide whether to say your last name or say the Talking Proud Girl.
No, Terry Licata, they know me by.
Oh, okay. All right. And joining us again, Sal Prezioso, a comic book enthusiast. And our guest tonight, first time on the show in many, many years, the great Stephen Geiger. How are you, Steve?
I'm very good, Sal. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. It's been quite a few years. So Steve is a comic book artist. And how many places have you drawn for?
Different companies, you mean? Let's see. I've done a little work for DC. Of course, Marvel is my big one.
Yeah.
I worked for Penthouse Comics at one time for a while. Continuity with Neil Adams, and then it was at the time called Acclaim, but it's Valiant again now. It was Valiant, then it was Acclaim when I worked there, and then it's Valiant again.
Very nice.
So how many years have you been involved in it?
I started working professionally in comics in 1985.
Very nice.
And what got you interested in that? I mean, what sparked your interest?
I always loved drawing from an extremely young age, and I actually liked doing caricatures of people. When I was very young, my mom got me. They were like these little like box things, right? And with them, they had one set had like cartoony characters, and another had like really amazing caricatures of famous people at the time. People like the President Kennedy and Lucille Ball and that kind of thing. And so I would do both of them. But I actually really loved doing the caricatures and really started learning to love drawing people and characters of them. And then I loved the work of Mort Drucker, who did the amazing caricatures in Mad Magazine and for all the movie parodies. And I wanted to work for Mad Magazine before anything else. That was my first love.
Very cool.
Did you actually work for them?
No, but a funny story is when I was 11, I submitted samples to Crazy Magazine, which was Marvel's like version or ripoff, if you want to call it, of Mad Magazine at the time. And I got a rejection letter back, and I was ecstatic. Yeah, just like, oh my God, somebody's on my work, and they said they bothered to send me a letter. I was thrilled by it.
Yeah.
And then later on, years later, I found out that the editor on the book and that was initially rejecting me was Larry Hama. And he and I have become very good friends since then. And, I've seen him at shows pretty often these days when we're out and about. So it's just kind of funny.
That's great.
Now, when you write your comics, do you like write them at home and, draw them at home and then like Federal Express them to the company, or?
You don't even need to do that anymore.
No?
No, because of computers.
Oh.
Basically I just scan the work in and then send a digital file over.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, a funny story, I got in Marvel. The way I got in initially was being a what's called a Romita's Raider at the time. That was John Romita was the art director of Marvel at the time. This is the early 80s. And so he was starting a apprentice program, and I was actually the third one. It was Keith Williams was the first one. He's also a very well-known comic artist. Phil Lord, not the Phil Lord, though, from Meatballs and movies, but a different Phil Lord. He was the second guy, and I was the third person to be an art apprentice for John Romita.
Very nice.
And he, our function was back then, they didn't have computers. I mean, they had computers, but they weren't as heavily used as they are now. And they weren't as, they were just really starting to break into most businesses at that point. So we were hired to make corrections on site, because otherwise they would have to send the art back to the artist, have him fix it, and then he'd have to send it back and then send that to the publisher. Instead, they cut that part out of it, and our job was to make the corrections on site. John was, our overseer, and he told us, helped us, guide us what we needed to do. It improved our work. It got us exposed to the other editors, and then it saved them time in getting the work back into the printers.
Very cool. Now,
How much did that help you in your journey? That actual day-to-day experience of
It was amazing. It was very much baptism of fire, right? I was up there for 3 months between my last 2 semesters of college, and so I got a place for $1,000 for the whole summer. It was up in the Upper East Side. It's a studio apartment, but it was amazing. And took the train down to work every day, and sometimes we're there very late, depending on what deadline was happening. We stayed over an entire weekend once fixing an issue of Secret Wars, which was really up against it, and we had to make a bunch of corrections. So we had a team up there just working. Then we'd go to sleep on the couch, and the next set would go up. And Jim Shooter was the editor at the time. He was bringing in Chinese food.
the original Secret Wars?
Yeah, the first one.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
The episode. Okay, so I think it was issue 8, I believe, is the one where the black costume is introduced.
Yes.
That was the issue that we were cramming to make all the corrections on. There was a lot of changes that had to be made because the storytelling he didn't feel was clear enough at that point. So.
Right. Well, Sal and I talked about that in high school with our friend Todd. We were always discussing Secret Wars because we loved it. And they've done it twice so far on cartoons. And now they're getting ready to do a feature film about it.
Right.
So what other Marvel characters have you written for?
Well, actually, I don't really write them per se. I'm not really written for Marvel. I've drawn, illustrated the
That's
books.
what I meant.
I do write stuff. I have my own book. We can talk about that later if you want.
Okay.
But I've worked on, initially, the first thing I worked on for Marvel was while I was an apprentice. I worked on an issue of Power Man Iron Fist. The artist that was working on it took ill, and he couldn't finish it up. So I did the last 6 pages of it over a weekend. Mm-hmm. And the editor on that, Denny O'Neil, who you may have heard of, very famous editor and writer and editor on the Green Lantern. I'm sorry, writer on the Green Lantern, Green Arrow stuff with Neil, and then later became an editor at Marvel on some of their biggest things, including I believe Daredevil. He was the editor on that. Maybe when Miller was there.
That's cool.
I could be wrong on that.
That is very cool. Mm.
Do you have a portfolio for your work? Do you save everything you do?
I save a lot of my stuff. I sold a lot of my stuff too when I was young, the original pages. I mean, I was living in New York City, and it was like, well, I really want to go out and party, so I'm gonna sell a couple of pages and get some cash up or whatever, But I kind of wish I had saved more of the stuff, but I have a decent amount still. And as far as the work being collected, I have wonderfully, Google has almost everything I've ever done. You can go over to there and pop in the things, and pretty much everything that comes up, even some stuff I haven't done comes up. Somehow my name gets related with a book. But so that's kind of it. But I do have still quite a bit of original stuff. Fortunately, we had a flood, so we lost a little bit of things over February here, this past February.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thanks.
You know how much
still wading through all that right now.
Yeah, I had
No pun
a
intended.
similar issue. Yeah. So what other characters, non-Marvel or non-DC, have you worked on that you were proud of?
Bloodshot, I worked on with Sal Monaco. I inked on that. Another Sal.
All these sales here.
Yeah, even that year, we're doing this out.
So I really enjoyed working on that. That was one of the first books I inked and didn't do the pencils on primarily, where I just served as an inker. And he's a great illustrator. So I think a lot of people enjoyed our work together. They thought we complemented each other well. We were both, from the Neil School, so we had a lot in common in that respect. And I think
That's great.
For Neil, I actually worked on Samory, which was a martial arts book with a female protagonist back in the
Nice.
in the late 80s.
Very nice.
She's sexy.
Yeah, well, she was young, so I mean, if you like him young, she was sexy.
Okay. Okay.
She was more. She was a teen,
She was a mid to early teen.
well, like late teen.
Late teen, okay.
But she was very capable. She had a pretty tragic backstory,
Okay.
and so it was a vengeance kind of deal, where she was seeking vengeance on people that wronged her and some of the people from her village that she came from early on.
Okay. Cool.
Fascinating.
What other events have you attended, like the Comic-Con and that? What other
Oh, a
events?
lot. Well, when I worked after I had got out of doing the freelance for a while, well, I was still doing freelance, but I was hired on staff at Marvel as the managing art director, working directly under John Romita in 1990, and I did that till about 1995. Then I went over to Penthouse Comics, which was George Carragon, or Carragoni, I guess, but I called him Carragon. That's how it was pronounced. It looked spelled Carragoni, but it's Carragon. He was a former Marvel writer and editor for a brief time, who moved over and started a comic division over at Penthouse. And it was more adult themed, a lot of parody on different things. Team Supreme was like a Justice League parody, and where everybody
remember that.
crazy, sexy shenanigans, but a lot of like political little nods and winks, and basically so before the boys, this was at the boys, and these people were wretched.
I was just gonna say that you took the name. You took the words right out of my mouth. Before we continue, I want to say another official thank you to Steve and his wife for helping me make my first movie.
Oh,
Steve
you're
not
quite welcome.
only was an actor in the film playing Frankie, but he also helped out a lot behind the scenes. And his wife played a wonderful character, and
Excuse me.
you guys were wonderful. And
Well,
I'll
thanks.
always
Apparently, she's
appreciate
gotten
it.
a lot of interest in it. Is she coming back? Is that the rumor I'm hearing?
That's what we were talking about.
Okay.
She did
Popular demand.
She did an audio play with us one time. So by phone, remember her phone
Yeah,
died.
I
That
do.
one went really well. So, yeah, she said she'll be back to reprise her role as Amber.
Well, that's good. That's good. She enjoys working with you. So
Yeah, well, it
we'll let that
was
go.
meant.
Yeah,
To,
you're getting a lot of accolades, I'm hearing as well. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. We've gotten 4 awards, and we're up for a 5th one. And we just, I just finished being in my 16th feature film, and one of which I directed. And we've made 33 short films now.
Nice.
Very prolific. So that's good.
Yep, and Terry's acting in them.
Sal did a religious one based on Christ that I want to see.
Which one was
Oh, you
that?
mean Sweet Jesus?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right,
You know,
I can hear a little bit about this.
that movie would not have worked if anybody but Richard Lambert was in the role of Jesus. And Richard Wicca, our producer, was the cinematographer on that film.
Okay, great.
And it was, it was an interesting film. I'm proud of it. I didn't get my entire way as producer, but I got 95% of it. So, and I got my little scene in there where I played a homeless man.
Cool.
I seem to be good at that.
I know.
I played the homeless man in college and in Greg Lamberson's film and in that film. So
Was that in your yearbook in high school?
I don't think so.
You lived on Colvin Avenue at like 344 Colvin Avenue or
Yeah.
something like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you remember my address.
Yeah, I go with numbers. Names, no. Numbers, yes. I remember the number after not calling it for 20 years.
I remember faces, but not names.
Okay.
I'm that way too.
I was producer of that film and actor on it, and it is a very good film. I mean, they used female apostles this time instead of males, and
this place take place in modern time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to look into this.
basically
film.
Jesus comes back and is looking to tell his story again. He gets 4 beautiful girls together and has them help him, and he runs into a lot of different situations.
Oh,
I
might have to
didn't
check
write
it
the
out.
movie, I just produced it.
Well, that's cool.
But yeah.
What control do you have as producer on the actual movie itself?
In this case, I had quite a bit because they told when it's time for editing and when I was on the set shooting, like I would make mention of an issue we had. Like an example, we were doing a scene and the actress was drinking water. Well, we wound up doing quite a few takes, and by the end, the water bottle was empty. So I had to tell Richard, we got to refill that bottle or it's going to break continuity. And he goes, good catch.
Okay.
Or there were things, or the donut situation. Dale was sitting down playing a rabbi that's talking to Jesus, and
Okay.
Jesus gives him a donut. Well,
On a bagel?
all the scenes we shot, each time in between, Dale would pick up a different donut.
Oh.
So I'm like, the donut keeps changing. The audience is going to wonder that. And Greg, the director, said, well, Jesus is changing the donut just to be funny. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Okay.
So we wound up putting transitions in between so it looked like time had passed and the donut had, he had picked up a donut and ate another one, you know.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things that got passed when I wasn't on set, like when Scarlett, one of the apostles who was taken out of a crack house, she's tweaking because she's coming off drugs, and he says, drink your coffee. Well, the camera shows the coffee almost full, and Jesus comes and pours some more into it. And the next time you see it, it's still the same as it was. So I'm like, and she never took a sip. So, like, what, did Jesus suddenly make the cup bigger? Or... And the other issue we had that had happened that day was that Scarlett was supposed to be, sweating and tweaking and everything. And she was laying on a couch with the sunlight coming in through the window. Well, she was wearing makeup, to make her look like she's drugged out. And they were supposed to he was supposed to put a compress on her head. Well, we can't put a wet compress on her because it'll make the makeup run.
Right.
But yet, she's sitting here in withdrawal. The sun is on her. She just drank hot coffee, and there's not a drop of water on her or, any sweat. And there was nothing we could do about that because it would have caused the makeup to run. So, that kind of stuff. That's what I did. Mostly during editing, I would say, well, we can't use this scene because this scene back here said you did this, and, basically continuity and stuff.
So what do you learn from bigger producers how to deal with different issues regarding production?
Yeah. In fact, I learned a few things today on the set with our friend Taylor Martin. She was quite a director, wasn't she, Terry?
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
I like her approach.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very enthusiastic.
What's the name of the film now?
Midnight Bowl.
Oh, right.
Right.
What alley are you guys shooting at? Are you shooting at?
It was Cherry something.
Cherry's Lane or something.
Cherry
like.
Lane or something. Cherry.
It's
yeah.
over on Tonawanda Creek Road. That's
Yes,
where me
Cherry
and my family
Lane.
goes bowling every New Year
Yeah, that's where we shot it.
for Christmas.
I've never been there before. It
Yeah,
was
me
quite
either.
interesting.
We like I said, we were 70s bowling.
That's very appropriate for that.
fans.
Yes, that's very appropriate for that time frame.
Who did that actor remind you of today?
I was trying to think.
Come on, it's just some famous actor.
Oh,
I couldn't think of his name. I have his name right, ready to say it, and I just can't. He's a comic, just like that guy today.
I don't recall. But Terry and I happened to both grab him at the same time, and it turned into a really nice improv scene.
I know, we both went to grab him, yeah.
Randomly. He was supposed to be this snooty...
He was pretty
He
good.
was great. Snooty bowler, professional bowler, and we were supposed to be his fans. I didn't know bowlers had those kind of fans, but hey, looks like it's going to be a good film.
That's-
So, Steve, you wanted to talk about your book?
Oh, yeah, okay. So what I'm working on right now is it's a book. I don't want to give, I won't belabor the plot or anything too much, but it's called Thunder Snow and Guardian of Niagara. And it's very based on Iroquois mythology. And it wasn't initially. I first came up with the idea. So, we had that really bad snowstorm Christmas Eve a couple of years back.
Yes.
Okay, so Christy was trapped in that downtown.
Oh.
She and her mom and her brother went to go get her stepdad out of Buffalo General because they supposedly threatened to put him out on the street. They didn't come get him. So they went downtown. They got caught in it down by Walden. And there was a time I didn't know if she was going to make it out, honestly, really, about 3 in the morning that Christmas Eve. Well, I guess it was Christmas by then. But she did, thankfully. But after that, and after kind of processing things, I got the idea for having a character, called Thunder Snow, based out of being created in Niagara Falls, somehow with electricity. I didn't really. I was thinking about ways like maybe he, like the typical comic book origin where he like somehow gets accidentally electrocuted and then merges with the weather, right? That was my first thought. But when I started doing some research on the falls, I found out that the Iroquois god Hinu lived under the old falls initially, and they started researching the origins of how all that happened, and decided to make the character native, and he is modern, but a lot of what happens to him is based on the old mythology, and so that's where its origins come from, and
It's really cool. I like that a lot. I have some Indian friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some Native American actors.
And my mom was 6.25% Canadian Blackfoot.
Good.
Yeah, I've also, I've lived down near Silver Creek for many years. Got to know quite a few people from the territory down there. Also, at the con, actually met a gentleman who was almost Kismet-y, who I'm going to be working with on not only, he's going to be a consultant for me on this, but we're also going to now be working on a kind of gangster thing involving...
Cool.
Italians?
No. No. Well, there's a lot of different things involved, but yeah. I can't really even talk too much about that one, as I promised them I wouldn't. We're kind of really just in the early stages of developing. Obviously, we just met, but we spent Saturday night after the show for hours just talking and kind of going through ideas.
Oh,
and
that was the
everything.
person you went to dinner with?
Yes.
Yeah, because I was by the table in that. Yeah. That's great. When do you think the book will be done?
I was just going to ask that.
It's going to be a little bit. It's still, in the formative stages, but we were just discussing, like, I initially was going to do a 6 book and then do it as a collected story, almost like a 6-book graphic novel where each of the books, and then they would all, be collected at a point but come out separately first. And then it was going to wrap up, but now I don't know that I'm going to do that. Now we may, because we were talking about some other things, we may extend it out. I mean, the main character makes a decision himself at some point, and we're determining whether or not that's going to end it there or if we're going to continue. So, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but we're in development. It's going well. We have a publisher already lined up.
Is it a graphic novel? Are you drawing it?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm writing it, and I will be probably doing like pencil layouts, and then what my idea is to reach out to some of my friends in the industry, fellow artists, and have like one person do the Titan pencil or Titan inks over my layouts, a different person perhaps each issue. You know, the consistent we see would be the layouts that I do and the story breakdowns, but the stylized parts would be each artist that takes their story
Cool.
on.
Yeah. So where can people see your comic book?
Well, actually, so the publisher that we have is tied into all the Barnes and Nobles across the country. So
Okay.
it's going to be not just in a comic book thing, but it'll be into traditional bookstores and be available that way.
Oh, that's great. You get a lot of exposure.
And what about your work up till now in the comic books?
What about it?
Where can people get that?
You can get a lot of it at Amazon online. I have a whole section of all my collected things, any of the back issues. You can get a lot of things on eBay, I think that there are some collected books also, probably at different Barnes and Nobles. They put it together, like for instance, it was called Gray Matter, which was when we reintroduced the Gray Hulk in my run on the Hulk. That just came out, and so there's a lot of work in that one. There was Craven's Last Hunt was a collected a work that has a lot of my stuff in it. Those are all available at Barnes and Nobles. Those kind of collected, bookshelf.
That's great.
Well, I was wondering, are you a left-handed artist or a right-handed artist?
I am righty.
Okay, I'm a lefty.
I'm a righty.
That's a sinister hand.
It is. But I used to scare myself with my right hand, so when I was a kid.
Well, I've written, except for the script of the original movie, which I just edited, I've written everything since then for my movies and my audio plays. So I've gotten to know my own universe pretty good. But it's hard to develop a character unless I have an actress who actually brings some life to it. Even if that person doesn't stick around, it gives a good template for the character.
This morning I read a fascinating thing about Malcolm McDowell when he was working on Clockwork Orange. Working with Kubrick and what the methods Kubrick did or didn't do to help him try to find his way to bringing Alex to the screen. That was
What a classic that
fascinating.
was.
Malcolm McDowell is amazing.
Yeah.
Yep, he's the man that killed Captain Kirk. Well, his character.
God, I remember when Clockwork Orange came out, it was like considered a very naughty book or a very naughty movie. But now look at what we've gone through in this day and age. It
was a bit ahead of
nothing.
its time, I think.
Incredibly ahead of its time.
Ahead of its time.
It's,
Really.
The whole arc of that film and the way he goes from being who he is to almost a sympathetic character at the end because of is he a product of the environment, and at the end is he used by that environment once again? Like when he's raised and they made a point of showing the people that he attacked were all wealthy. He did not come from money, and he came from very poor beginnings. That doesn't justify what he did, but it sort of explains where the character came from and what the motivations were and why. And then once he goes through the cycle of the rehabilitation, then being re-released and then becoming a victim because he has no ability to fight back, it's fascinating, and it's totally way ahead of its time. I mean, Kubrick, I don't know about you guys, Kubrick and Wells to me are neck and neck.
Oh, yeah.
I love Scorsese, Hitchcock, whoever else, but those two were just amazing.
Definitely. No doubt about
Who
that.
did Twilight Zone and Outer Limits?
Twilight Zone was Rod Serling.
Okay.
Outer Limits was a couple different people.
Okay.
Was it Boris Karloff, one of them? Or no?
No.
No.
He was
in with the Teller, wasn't it called the Teller? Or
No, I'm not sure. I think that's what it was, but
Or
I know
Scarlet.
he was in a couple episodes of, I don't know for sure, but I think he was in a couple episodes of Serling's other show, Night Gallery. But yeah, he did have his own show, but I don't recall the name of it offhand.
What was your favorite Night Gallery? Your most memorable one.
I haven't watched enough of it to say that. The one at the radio station is the one I remember the most.
What about Twilight Zone?
Oh,
My most memorable one is when they walked in the wall. Kid got up during the night and went through the wall into another.
Little Girl Lost.
Little girl lost.
And it's funny
What a
because
piece that
during
was.
the scene where they're in
The wall.
inside the wall in the other dimension,
Yeah.
it's basically a warehouse where they removed everything and they put all that lighting special effects over it. So the girl and the dog are walking in the warehouse, and the father's trying to pull her back. And it was actually
great.
a very simple thing to do, but it looked so good for that time, you know. And they had a good cast for that one. A lot of these episodes wouldn't have done very well if they hadn't had a good cast.
There's so many that were.
What was your
good.
favorite of the original?
It's hard. I don't know that I have a favorite, but I have definitely like a top 5 I could name.
Okay,
you.
go ahead.
So, and I don't know all the title names, but Monsters on.
The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. That's a famous one.
Yeah. The one with Billy Mooney and.
Gotta be more specific. He's done 3.
Well, you're a bad man. You're a bad
He knows them all. He knows them all.
Yeah. You mean where he played Anthony? Yeah, that was This Your Life.
That one. Also, the one where.
And Cloris Leachman told me that making that episode was very weird.
It was great. I mean, that was really one of the
The
best.
Good Life. That's what it was.
Good
called.
Life, right?
Okay.
Then and also the one where the woman who's totally gorgeous, drop dead, is actually the outcast, and everybody else has got the kind of pig faces.
That's one of my
another
favorites,
one of the
yeah.
classics. It's called Eye of the Beholder.
Right there, you go.
And that one was remade in the 2000 version and made it look a lot more updated with
Better makeup.
I think my friend Dorian played the doctor in that one.
But I actually thought that with the Cruder one was more effective because it made them really seem like disfigured and ugly, but that was the norm, and the beautiful person was the considered disfigured and ugly, which was that is genius.
It didn't help.
And the actress who played the lady is the actress that played Ellie Mae on the Beverly Hillbillies.
Right. When she was much better there. Look at the range she had in that, right, compared to Beverly Hillbillies.
And Monsters Are Due on Maple Street was also remade, but instead of it being aliens, it was terrorists. And instead of it being lighting, it was gas type things.
Yeah.
If you were to describe Outer Limits to me, if I said to you, what type of show is that?
Let him finish, and then
Okay,
I'll tell you.
all right.
Go ahead.
Now, I just had in mind the other one, and this is one to me that speaks right of what's going on right now in a lot of ways. So, it's the whole episode is just one room and 2 elderly people sitting in wheelchairs and 2 younger people giving them back rubs for the whole thing almost.
Really?
And then we find out at the end that the people giving them the back rubs are robots. They're AI, and they're not real. And the people in it the real people just sit there the whole time, just give me pleasure for these robots. And they're contemplating their life, and they've got nothing. They don't know what they're doing, why they're there.
That was
way ahead of
probably
it.
the 80s version. That wasn't one of the originals, but yeah, it was pretty good.
Well, we're about to
No,
get
this
there.
was the original. This was black and white from back in the day.
I don't remember that episode.
Another one way ahead of its time.
Yeah. The only one I remember about robots that was...
No, they didn't look like robots. They looked
No,
like
I know.
people.
Oh,
But at
wait
the
a
end-
minute.
But
I
at
know
the
they
end,
were-
it was revealed
Okay.
that they were actually...
Robots.
I know what you're talking about now. The Lateness of the Hour. Yeah. And that starred John Hoyt, who played the original Doctor on Star Trek. And he played a lot on... I remember now. And then the daughter didn't want the robots around, and then we find out at the end that the daughter is actually a robot, but she didn't know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the lateness of the hour. That was not one of my favorites, but
Well,
I do remember.
I
it.
really think that the concept so speaks to now about people wanting AI to do everything and how are we going to become so dependent on it that we become like that?
Mm-hmm.
We just,
It's hard not to. I use a lot of that in my legal studies, and basically, I learn a lot of good stuff, and I have high grades because I don't look at a lot of stuff that other people do, because if they make mistakes, I don't want to follow that.
yeah.
Well, AI needs to be used as a tool to help, not something to do the work for you. Because, like our friend,
We use it in theater.
yeah, well, our friend did a class on how to work with AI, and a lot of my Hollywood friends have said if you're using AI to write, you're going to be you're going to be blacklisted because it's putting the writers out of business. And
There's always going to be a soullessness to AI. I don't care whether it's in art, whether it's in writing. You can have something, and I guess that's the question. Whether we talk about let's talk about Blade Runner for a minute.
Okay.
So,
Okay, good.
Blade Runner, that AI developed feelings. Did they have feelings? Did they have emotion? Did they have souls? Did they develop, beyond just intelligence, were they able to develop souls? So unless AI develops a soul, it can never really approximate
like
humans. But
Yeah.
that may happen. You never know.
They do approximations. I think there's basically mathematical approximations. They have large language groups. They have word groups, and they have associations between words. Like I know there's a close association between like truth and objectivity, and basically, it really comes down to when you're teaching the AI, what is your ideology behind it? Because that's the thing, is because if you really get into higher level stuff, you're going to be influenced into a particular ideology, and I think that's the thing that's dangerous.
Well, AI is in danger of eclipsing everything in Hollywood. Like now, one of the things there was a strike over was people like signing on your likeness and then AIing you in, so they're having you in a movie without you even being there.
I was going to say, yeah.
Are you familiar with American Flag? Okay, so American Flag was a series in the early 80s written by a guy named Howard Chaykin, written and illustrated. Mm-hmm. The main character, Reuben Flagg, was a Plexus Ranger who was an actor playing a Plexus Ranger and was replaced by AI. The show went on, they kicked him off the show and used his image for the rest of the time, and not him. He ended up taking a job as a real Plexus Ranger, and this is the time where there was no countries ended. There were only corporate Plexus. There was Plex USA, Plex USSR. There was a Plex in South America, Plex Europe. There was no more countries, and the AI had taken over the vids. They were putting subliminal messaging in it. Amazing piece of work that needs to be made into a television series. And he told me that, well, people have stolen so much through the years from it for this or this or this that nobody wants to make it. But I'm telling you this, if I ever get the chance, I will be the one to make that. It is amazing, and it was so far ahead of its time. I remember. You remember when the commercials came out with Fred Astaire being created in AI dancing with the vacuum cleaner, and they had they took the movie and then they added in imagery of this vacuum of him dancing with it as opposed from one.
Yes,
of the films.
I remember that.
And then they added their own AI stuff
Yes.
with him in with it. Like that was the first thing I remember actually seeing that did that and pulled it off, and thought to myself, "This is the beginning." He was so right.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the line? What's the original title of Blade Runner for the book? Because it asks the essential
I believe
question.
it was Android's Dream of Electric Sheep.
Mechanical? I think maybe it was electric. I thought it was mechanical, but it could be electric. But right, do they dream? Do they dream at all? Do they have dreams? And what do they dream of? Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what they explored in the Star Trek episodes about Data, Measure of a Man, and the one about his daughter. Do we have the right to
Replicate him.
no, do we have the right to treat him as an object rather than as a being?
Right.
And at one point she said, well, he could be like a toaster. And, it was an interesting, it was establishing the rights of androids, establishing the rights of photons, any kind of artificial life form that could be sentient, So like the Doctor in Voyager, he was a photon, and the Professor Moriarty, they were photonic life forms. So to answer your question quickly, The Outer Limits was a anthology series just like Twilight Zone, but it was more science fiction.
It wasn't scary though, really.
Not really. No, it more was like contact with extraterrestrial life and more telling hard science fiction shows. In fact, they shared a script with Star Trek. The Star Trek episode Arena. It was called Fun and Games. And it was an interesting take on the story. Arena was the better one.
And to answer your question from what we did today, Jim Carrey.
Okay. All right.
Right?
Yeah.
Jim Carrey reminded me so much, that actor today.
Yeah, that's true. John did remind a little. Yeah. So, Steve, how many cons do you do a year now, or events, or whatever?
Right this past year, or this year right now, we kind of, because of a lot of personal upheaval, I don't want to get into it on air, but we've over the last 2 years have dealt a lot with familial things, not my immediate family of four, but in things that have influenced from outside. I won't, like I said, I will not get into that on the air, but that has kind of put a crimp in a little bit of our travels. This year we moved and we had this issue with the flooding. So normally we would try to do 1 to 2 a month. We've probably only did 3 or 4 so far this year. Now during the fall coming up, we're going to be doing a lot more. Probably starting in September through the end of the year, we'll probably be doing 2 to 3 a month. Now we try to not get too crazy, you know what I mean. But we do a lot of them all over the country. We don't just do here in Buffalo. We travel, and we've done them. My son, before he hit his 5th birthday, had probably been to 21 states. I didn't leave New York until probably I was 18 to go. So I think maybe I went to Cedar Point once when I was a kid.
That's wild.
I traveled more as a kid than I did it as an adult.
Actually, I think I did too.
Yeah.
I used to go to California for a month every year, which did not help in grammar school, but was extremely fun.
Well, and that's an issue too. My kids are both in school. They're school age, and so we have to work them around when they're off from school, and how much time we have, whether we're flying or if we're driving. So it's tricky to navigate sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that Chris was able to get out of that snowstorm.
Me too. It was very touch and go there for a while.
I don't know if you remember, one time we were doing a shoot at the coffee house, and it's supposed to take place during the summer, and we were in the middle of a blizzard, and we weren't sure who was going to make it and who wasn't. Steve braved it, and he and Chris got there, and pretty much everybody.
We were living close at that time, though.
Okay.
We were right down on Sterling and Hurdle.
Oh, okay.
So we were just right down the street.
But the actresses were dressed in summertime clothing and stuff.
It was
and I'm
snowing out.
I'm like, you guys can put what you need to keep warm on until we're ready to shoot, and they're like, no, we have to get into character. And I'm like, it's like if you watch that scene, you can't tell that it's shot in the middle of a blizzard, except for one thing: nobody is sweating. Where some of the scenes we shot in the summer, especially the outside
And they're
scenes,
sweating.
People
are sweating. Yeah.
You know what the trick for that is, right?
What?
You got to get a spray bottle.
Yeah. I didn't. It was my first time. I didn't think to do that at the time, but a lot of the indoor scenes. Yeah, it took us a year actually to do primary filming, and then we had to do a little bit afterwards. But unfortunately, the team I had wasn't very efficient, except for Steve. I mean that. That's why I loved it when you were working on the set. Yeah, so when you mentioned Malcolm McDowell earlier, it reminded me that Sal and I were at my cottage in Crystal Beach one time, and we were watching the Saturday movie, and it was his best one, which was Time After Time.
I love that film as well. I do have to say The Clockwork is a better performance. He's great in it. I don't know that in Clockwork, obviously time has tested it as being one of the classic films of all time.
Oh, yeah.
But that is a great movie, and I love that film. You know who directed and wrote that, right? Nicholas Meyer, the guy who wrote and directed. Well, he didn't write or directed, but Wrath of Khan. Did he direct that one?
He definitely
Directed. I think he did. I think he did direct and write that. I think he only wrote the fourth one, though. I don't think he directed the fourth film.
Well, if he wrote it, he's good.
Search for Spock was the fifth film. That was Shatner.
Search for Spock was the third one. The fifth film was Final Frontier.
That was the one that Shatner directed.
Yes.
Did Nimoy direct?
Nimoy directed Search for
third?
Spock.
Right, so maybe it was Myers that directed the fourth film as well. And he definitely wrote Undiscovered Country. You know that. But yeah, Nicholas Meyer is a talent, man. 7% Solution. You ever see that? The Freud and Sherlock Holmes film?
No.
Yeah, 7% Solution, it is regards to his coke addiction.
Yeah. A lot of adaptations ignored the coke addiction, but the most recent attempts at Sherlock Holmes, at least 3 that I know of. One was with Benedict Cumberbatch. One is the new show Watson, and there was an American version that Lucy Liu was playing a female Watson.
Yeah, it was. That was with. Who was playing Holmes in that?
I always forget.
Was it Trainspotting? Miller?
I can't remember.
Was that it? Eli. He was in Eli. Whatever, too. Wasn't that him?
I honestly don't recall. But they did not at all ignore the coke addiction.
Yeah.
Now, the cartoon, Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century, that completely ignored it.
Yeah.
They weren't even subtle about it. It's like, nope, we're not even going to mention it.
Well, those were geared to kids, right?
Yeah.
That would be why.
Although there have been
what we're
things-
doing today is makes you
And
wonder.
by the way, in that film I mentioned,
Yeah.
Nicole Williamson as Holmes and Alan Arkin as Sigmund Freud.
Oh, wow. What's it called?
The 7% Solution.
Ah.
He was
Very nice.
seeing Freud for psychiatry as a patient.
Very nice.
Very good. It's a
Was
very
Freud a
good film.
coke user?
I don't know.
I know
Yeah.
Coke was in Coca-Cola back before the
Till 1904.
Okay.
Really?
Yep.
I've heard that, but I wasn't 100% sure if that was actually true or not.
Mm-hmm.
But Time After Time recently, a few years ago, it got a TV series. And it had potential, but it didn't go past 4 episodes, which is a shame.
What, did he go back to different things in time? Yeah.
It was interesting. It was basically more of what happened when H.G. chased Jack the Ripper in the present, and there was another team involved, and it was kind of strange, but it had potential, but it didn't get good enough ratings for them to continue. They dropped the ball on it. I mean, it's kind of like with what was that movie, Frequency? Making a it was a perfect movie, but trying to make a TV series out of it is hard.
And it's funny because there's some movies that should have been TV series, like Watchmen. Mm-hmm. Had they made
Which
that,
it is.
Well, right, but had they originally done that as an extended series and breaking it down the way that the that the books came out,
Right.
one a month and representing an hour, right, as the countdown. If they had made it that way, they would have been able to include all the stuff they took out of the first film that made everything so much better. All the Black Freighter stuff missing diminishes the whole story, and having none of the street level characters, which they also took out, diminishes it because it gives no everyman angle to it.
Right.
When you only focus on the superheroes or the politicians, who cares?
Yeah. Now, as a comic book artist, how do you feel about the way media has done them as movies, TV shows, cartoons?
I think it's hit and miss. There's been great ones. There's been, bad ones, and there's been some that are just meh, I will tell you my opinion about, for instance, lately, I thought Thunderbolts was very good.
I thought so, too.
I enjoyed it very much. I thought it had a very unique ending comparatively to a lot of other films of his genre. I liked the mental health aspect and all the characters dealing with that, not just, the main, quote, villain. But that was very good. I thought Brave New World was very meh, and they missed the boat. Had they made it into an event film, my idea for that film would have been to reshoot the entire ending of the original Hulk movie with the new actors in place in their roles, with the Abomination special effects being what they were in Shang-Chi or She-Hulk versus what they came up with for that film. The whole all the effects in that were pretty shoddy comparatively. So if they had redone all that for the first 10 minutes of the film instead of their bad recapping in a newscast for 20 seconds, that would have made it much more impactful, especially having a scene showing the split between Ross and his daughter, Betty, really showing that scene, and then starting the film with him being elected after that all happens. It earns its ending a lot more. I also thought could have been cool, because and this is a sensitive area, but I'll get into it because Stan and Denny would have explored this kind of thing, the racial aspect and the sort of way that a lot of people are turned off to Sam Wilson being Captain America because of being a man of color, right? So why not explore that in the film? They had a potential. The leader was lame. He was lame when they first introduced him, and he was lame in this movie. I made in a post that said he's like the leader of gummy consumption because he was so stoned and out of it and not compelling whatsoever. But
Matt Frewer did a better job in the '90s cartoon.
Yeah, because he was more forceful, right? This guy wasn't forceful at all. He was not a leader.
No.
But that aside, what I think they missed a really good opportunity would have been to introduce the hate monger as secretly part of Ross's cabinet, kind of fanning the flames of racial division, and then him having to, that would actually give him an arc, a redemptive arc, besides that he could really earn Betty's back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Realizing and turning against this guy, having him be the true villain, Ross being, he was a puppet, but badly done. This way being manipulated by one of his staff into this, stance, and then it would have made a lot more impact. It would have been a lot edgier, and it would have been a lot more meaningful than what they came out with, in my opinion.
I love the version of Ross from the '80s cartoon. That was the best, I think, of the one we can get. Well, what was your favorite TV show that actually did it right?
Are we talking about back in the day TV shows?
Whatever you want.
I thought The Incredible Hulk back in the day was pretty good.
It was good because for two reasons. One, because they took out everything except Banner and the Hulk and just made it the fugitive who happened to turn into the Hulk.
Right.
There was nothing else about the show until the TV movies. There was nothing else about the show that was superhero. And of course, Lou is a friend, and I consider him the ultimate Hulk, but let's face it, he wasn't big enough, and he couldn't do as much as the Hulk always did in the series. But I mean, for the '70s, I think they did a pretty good job.
I thought it was great for the time, and for the limited special effects they had capable, he pulled it off. It was believable. Using two different actors was smart, as opposed to now they CGI the actor, which is great. I think the Hulk, the best version of the Hulk, was the one that they used with Ruffalo. He's the one that looked closest.
There's no doubt about that.
That looks closest to the version that was in the comics.
Yeah, the first two guys that really disappointed me. Who were they? Ed Norton
and Eric Bana.
Yeah, I think they both dropped the ball.
And they weren't bad actors themselves, but the CGI that they developed off of them were not convincing Hulks, either one. they really got it when they did it in the Avengers, when and Ruffalo took over and Joss Whedon started directing.
Well, Bill Bixby did David Banner. Mark Ruffalo is the only one who's actually done Bruce Banner. You know?
Wasn't Norton Bruce Banner as well?
Yeah, but he didn't do it right. I'm saying this is the one
You're
that
playing
did,
it off, right?
played it off well, and I
think
thought
visually he looked
naming
most
his
like Banner.
father David Banner I thought was interesting, but all that stuff about his father was all nonsense. It was never in the comic books, and it kind of
What stuff in the comic books?
about his father being partially responsible for him being the Hulk in the original Hulk movie.
Oh, that's
David
not true.
Banner.
That is not true. Well, you're talking about from a chemical standpoint, from his physically turning into Hulk? No, that and as far as I know, but the abuse was in fact, before Peter really took the ball and ran with it, the abuse was introduced by myself and Al Milgrom.
Oh.
In one of the first, when Rick Jones becomes the Hulk.
The Blue Hulk.
Yeah, no, he's the green, long-haired, skinny rock star Hulk first.
Oh, okay.
That's A-Bomb when he becomes the Blue Hulk.
That's true, yeah.
So when we reintroduced the Hulk as the Gray Hulk, and it turned and Rick. So do you know what happened in that? I'll refresh you. So basically, before I had taken over, John Byrne I think Bill Mantlo had divided Banner and the Hulk into two separate entities.
Yeah, they did that in the cartoon.
Banner was separated, and Hulk was just now a raging monster with no human inside. Byrne wanted to merge them. He had Doc Samson kidnap the because
I love Doc Samson.
and this was definitely a nod to the enemy within. You remember the Star Trek episode where Kirk gets split into two,
Yes.
the transporter, and he can't survive without his other half.
Episode 5, yes.
So it was the same thing happened in the Hulk. Banner was getting ill without the Hulk being in him because he had been part of him so long that he needed to be put back in with him or he was going to die.
Yeah.
So Samson is trying to remerge them in this bath, right? A gamma bath, they called it.
Yeah, they did that in the 90s cartoon.
Well, this was in the 80s, so.
That
So
was
you
in
saw
the
it
comics.
afterwards.
Yeah, they waited 10 years to adapt
Right.
it to TV.
So because this happened my run was in 86.
Right.
So he gets in the bath, and they've got
The nutrient
Banner.
bath, yeah.
They got Hulk, and Hulk's, the Hulk without banners, his body in there.
The Green Hulk. Yeah.
And Ross is trying to sabotage it. Rick Jones goes to try to stop him, and Ross knocks him into the nutrient bath with the Banner and the Hulk. An explosion ensues, and Banner comes out. He's now emerged but he's gray again, like originally.
Uh-huh.
And Rick Jones comes out,
As
and
the
we don't
Green
know
Hulk.
we don't know who he is, but a Hulk figure now is lurking about. When they don't know who it is, it's revealed the next episode or issue. But it's Rick Jones because of the bath. Now it's turned him into a gamma radiated creature as well. But I made him opposite. I made him tall and thin with long hair, kind of based on. Do you remember the Frankenstein with Michael Sarrazin and James
Yes.
Mason?
Yes.
So I based him on that.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Because the original Hulk was sort of based on Frankenstein in some ways, in his look with the flat head
Yeah.
and that Boris Karloff hairdo that he had going on when they originally put the
Yeah.
Hulk. He was like kind of a Frankenstein combo with Mr. Hyde. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, Lou told me once that he didn't like the aspect of the Hulk being smart because he said it took away the whole Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing of it.
Yeah.
But during Secret Wars, Dr. Banner's brain was in the Hulk. And
But you know who did touch on it and they made that work that way? Peter David made
I
Joe
know Peter.
Fixit, right? He turned the Gray Hulk into Joe Fixit. Because if you look at the very first episodes when he became the Hulk, or the first issues early on, he wasn't Hulk smash. He was more like Jekyll. He was smart, cunning, but he was like a guy who drank. I mean that was the whole story of Dr. Jekyll is taking this intelligent person, altering his mind with drugs. Let's say you're a smart person that drinks, and you turn into a raging brute versus that intelligence. So that was the dichotomy. It wasn't that he was like stupid and a child. It was more it affected him and turned him more brutish and turned him away from being a sophisticated, a man who had progressed. It regressed him back to more of a brutish, animalistic version.
I'll have
Not-
to go back and watch those two movies again.
We got to
well,
start
look at
wrapping it
if
up,
you
too.
can
Yeah.
find recreations of the original
Yeah.
books, because I when I was growing up as a teenager, they were producing these collections. I was able to reread the first like 12 issues of the
Very
Hulk
cool.
when they came out. When I was before I'd actually broken into comics,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually found out about the origin of the Hulk versus what I had seen, in the TV shows and the cartoon,
Yeah.
which had the more simplified version,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we have less than a minute, so I want to thank Steve for being our guest tonight.
Yes, thank
Thank you very
Thank
much for
you,
having me.
Steve.
This
It was
was
a pleasure
great.
to
I
meet
really
you.
enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
No, thank
I
you.
want to thank Terry and
So
Sal
very
for
nice.
coming
Very
in to
pleasure meeting you.
co-host.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you guys for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
You're
co-host.
welcome.
One last question, Steve. What's the favorite thing you've drawn as comic?
My
Got 30
favorite
seconds.
thing, probably, I really enjoyed my work on the Hulk. That was very enjoyable. Most of the covers. I mean, my Punisher. I love doing the Punisher, and that's some of my most recognized work. So, I would say, all my Marvel stuff is, close to my heart. Always will be.
Okay, great. So with
So
10
how long did you know
seconds,
stand for?
Here's the sad thing. I actually never got to meet Stan.
Uh-huh.
I was supposed to. He was already out in L.A. when I started working.
okay, end of show. Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.